Your message began before it even begun. And I just recorded 20 minutes of sharing these astral notes and part of my meditation and these downloads that came through for your message today, and everything was on mute. And so that tells me, and it's very symbolic because there's something that you're being called to create that you feel like you have been silenced in many ways across many lifetimes. Now, the throat space was huge. Your emotions are informers within your physical vessel that are showing you where your work is. This morning in meditation, there was a huge contraction in the throat. And so it was telling me a lot about gifts and abilities that have been suppressed or abandoned within your whole ancestral lineage that you're now reclaiming and regathering. And that's because sacred inner space was coming through. Last night in the astral realm, I was working through a lot of imbalances within the sacral body, and I was working in the etheric realms with this being that I actually shared in my Transcendent Teachings playlist. You'll find a reading where we spoke about destiny being a program that we input into the system so that we don't fall into nihilism, and it also gives us a sense of direction as we move through this third dimension. But your pure creative life force and your soul desires to express itself in a particular way, and everything that you create in this realm becomes independent on its own. It takes on a life of its own, yet it still carries the essence of your soul. And so that goes on and it sends ripples through space-time where other beings and souls are able to intersect with it. And I just see it as bringing them back to their own light, bringing them back. I'm hearing reflecting their light back to them. So something is carrying the essence of you, which also is the essence of source. I'm seeing it's the essence that streamlines through you. The position of an artist is a humble one, for he becomes a conduit for a higher power to move through him. And that is what's going on right now. So sacral energy is very much what I was seeing was a time dilation bubble, almost a biofield where we are able to remember ourselves as the eternal being, as the timeless consciousness, experiencing these temporal moments through space-time. And I'm seeing something around temporal moments of creation that that live for eternity, that begin to evolve throughout eternity. And it could be about your soul's expression or your signature or something that you're being called to do, or the way that you touch people, that being a huge part of your legacy, is the way that you leave people feeling after your encounters, or something that you create also does. But this is something you're reclaiming, all right? I really want to speak about that. It was something that you were reclaiming. And so I'll share with you, first of all, I'll share with you my meditation that I had this morning, what I was doing in the etheric realms and what I was seeing in the astral realm, because I do feel many of you are participating there as well. So I do want to share that. And also my astral travel and the theme of it, which was all sacral based. Now, what I was seeing was suppression when it comes to multidimensional gifts and abilities, and being able to streamline that into your earthly timelines, and this being a repeated ancestral theme. It's one wound that has been carried across generations that you have incarnated into in order to liberate the entire lineage, okay, through your expression. So let me go ahead and share with you that meditation that I did. So the first thing was a suppression when it comes to the act of creation and the force of creation. That was connected deeply to the solar plexus, which shows themes of disempowerment. It's where you have felt disempowered by your own ability to express in this realm freely. And so that could be about creation for creation's sake, instead of creating based upon how you're going to be perceived. And that was also linked to inner child wounds of needing to ground safety into the body, needing to feel stable, feeling secure, feeling harmonious, feeling safe enough for the soul to essentially play once again in this existence. And so I'm going to go ahead and read to you this energy, because this is how you're going to know it's for you. It could be something that you're actively working through. It could also be just a huge wound, across the lineage, but the fact that I just recorded this and it was on silence shows me there's a lot that has been silenced. Sacral chakra energy is to do with water. It's directly linked to our area of procreation in this realm, right? So it's linked to the sexual organs, and it's deeply linked to the Scorpio archetype. And so Scorpio is linked to 8th house energy, which is a lot to do with power that has been repressed and suppressed. And also where you have, I'm seeing disassembled and fractured from your own potential across lifetimes, where you're now incarnating in order to regather the fragmented aspects of self, okay, the lost aspects of self, the gifts that essentially you or your ancestors had abandoned. Let me read this for you. It's very, very powerful. Okay, so thank you for being here with me. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing. This is like a deep dive session, and yeah, it was coming through all night. I'll tell you that. It was very, very deep work. So, all right, sacred inner space talks about sensuality, tenderness, and the sacral chakra. The sacral chakra is found beneath the belly button, and it's an energetic space that governs our reproductive system and all forms of expression connected to it. Everything from our sexuality to our capacity to express the tender and more sacred parts of ourselves is connected to this chakra. And it's also about how we exchange our life force with the world around us. Something that I was saying in our previous session that had been silenced was that there is this embodied power that you're now able to maneuver and navigate this worldly construct anchored in, and it may be a complete different octave of consciousness in which not only you hosting but you're exercising and interacting with society is what I'm seeing, sustaining this level of awareness where you're able to stay with yourself. Oh, this was another thing that I was talking about. Vulnerability being the only bridge to connection. And that's going to be huge. I'm hearing it's part of your restorative process. And so that could be you opening yourself up to new timelines of experience that you've previously withheld yourself from, or things that you're creating that also hold and are infused with the essence or expression of your soul. Anything you create is an extension of yourself in this realm. You are quantumly entangled with it. Okay, so you're not separate from it in any way. Anyway, that's what it was. And so it also speaks about it's governed by water, and so it helps us move with the flow of life in order to express our most authentic self. So again, that's where that authenticity, throat chakra energy, when it comes to self-expression, has been suppressed in some way. So these are directly linked. And I'm seeing, again, this gateway opening. I'm seeing it as almost like a dam where this has been closed and you've come in and you're opening this up. And so it feels like a growing pain type of process for sure. And there was also another message around something that you create that also holds this level of coherence because you create it from a coherent place, is infused with that essence. And other souls that come into collision with something that you send throughout space-time that has this ripple effect could be deeply impactful, especially within their own emotional body. I'm just seeing something that moves people, moves other souls. And I'm seeing it as not that they're moved externally, they're moved inwardly. They're moved in invisible ways beyond ordinary perception. There is a way in which you become a conduit for this higher expression to move through you. So this also speaks about, this card transports us to the inner sacred space of our inner temple with flowing water. It talks about a blooming lotus, which also blossom in the most unexpected places. And I'm hearing it's how you've learned to find your eternal light in times of darkness that you're also able to illuminate the path for others. This is the most sacred parts of yourself that you're reconnecting with, through which you can express and manifest as pure life force. You are connected to the gateway of the sacred self. It's an opportunity to recognize the more tender and vulnerable aspects of your being that hold great keys to your power. Honor the sacred within and reclaim any parts of yourself that you've disconnected from or abandoned. I'm literally seeing as many gifts that the entire lineage and you throughout this lifetime as well, you're getting to show up for yourself in a way that you couldn't before. And when you do that, you also do for all those who run parallel, right? So there's something around that, because 8th house energy and scorpionic energy is very much fragmented. You can think about it as Osirian energy, right? Osiris, where he was dismembered, essentially disconnected from his power, and then it took the restoration of the divine feminine. No, it's not exoteric and an external archetype. It's about the internal Isis being, our divine feminine power, our non-physical self, our eternal self, right? Our fluid being. It's the soul navigating the physical form. And that creates Horus, which is the deity. It's literally mastery of the mind, mastery of the emotional body, which leads to mastery over the physical realm. That is the triad. I'll do a whole teaching on the alchemical marriage. But he was able to recover these fragmented pieces of himself across space-time, across this planet Earth, because he was able to anchor in the higher self throughout his entire organism, right? He was able to remember himself, remember all these different members of himself, and go through this restoration process through the reconnection with his own divinity, okay? Through the reconnection with his own soul, with his true self. Therefore, he connected to the essence that extended far beyond space-time, right? Often when we incarnate into this realm, we can forget our etheric origins, and there is beauty in being able to, and this is also part of the message that came through in the astral realm, in being able to restore electrical communication with our source, with the one source in which we all emerge from, the one source in which we all spring forth from. And when we restore that electrical communication with plasma, it shifts the way that we feel about our journey on Earth. And I'm hearing it subtly influences us in invisible ways that then translate through our physical experiences or creations, or very ways of embodied embodiment, right? What's the word? Divine lighthouse of wisdom in which you're able to impart to those around you, that then becomes a form of enlightenment. Because not only do you see yourself as a light being, but all other children of light that are also returning to that wisdom once again, right? Learning, holding space with that learning process, okay? So yeah, recognize the power that you hold within the universe. You may have even been lied to and told that you aren't beautiful. This card is here to remind you that you have more beauty in the world than you may first think. Now, let me move on to the first download that I was having last night in the etheric realms. So I was in between the astral realm. I was just traveling through dimensions, essentially. And if you know anything about interdimensional travel, when you are slipping off into deeper brainwave states, the paradox is that you actually travel into higher dimensions. And so that lucidity becomes an ongoing state of awareness, not just in how we exchange our life force and our energy lucidly in this third dimension, but that also bleeds into all other dimensions that we navigate. And so the encounter that I had was with this being that I met through one of my ceremonies, which I shared also, which I'll link down below. And as we were walking through the Eternal Now, we were zooming out from this matrix and this universe, and we were anchoring back in this high perspective. I'm seeing this as something that you've been able to do again and again, which is remembering that you branch beyond the very system that you're immersed in. And as you restore again that electrical communication, it deeper connects you with your purpose, it deeper connects you with your why. And so you can be anchored into this grid, anchored into this planet Earth, yet possess this higher level of awareness that you're able to streamline and integrate into your everyday lived experience. And so I saw it as you experiencing yourself as this localized point in the field, but then our evolution journey allows us to return to a place where we remember ourselves as the very field that our vessel also moves through. So we are the very room that is hosting our vessel in order for us to begin to experience and interact with this dimension. I saw this image of this fractal of awareness that had split off from the source, all right? So it's the binary code. It's where the 1 breaks off from the 0. It lands onto planet Earth. That fractal of awareness becomes conscious of itself. And so as it becomes conscious of itself, it falls back into coherence and begins to restore electrical communication with its source. And so as it has this rejuvenating access to this hidden wellspring of knowledge, it can maneuver and navigate planet Earth, always zooming out from its current life experience and not allowing it to be defined by this moment within space-time, for it remembers itself as the eternal being experiencing these temporal moments, right? So that is essentially what I was seeing. Then the next message was, there's beauty within that experience because we get to stare back at source and stare back at our own infinity, and we forget about the beauty of existence itself beyond this role. And so that's been a huge thing, especially within my subjective journey with the South Node that's been transiting through my 10th house, like the past almost 18 months. It's who are you without your right? Who are you without your work? Who are you without this role or this title that you have in the world, whether that's a parent, whether that's a partner, whether that's some type of role in which we play in society. 10th house can be a lot to do with the public persona of the soul and how the world sees your soul on the world stage. So who are you without this role that you're playing? And can you find value in simply just existence itself? Can you find value in simply just being? And so I spoke about purpose being a program and filling in that gap. And then I have this analogy to share with you that came through. And it came through at about 5 a.m. in the morning. And I spoke about a feeling that you can bask in. And that feeling is essentially a vibration. And we are conduits. So this is the hollow bone teachability card that I want to share. Hollow bone teachability talks about becoming empty of your notions, becoming literally an empty conduit that is just pure creative life force. And we can feel the full range of human emotion, yet simultaneously exist within the void. We can feel the full spectrum of human emotion and the full spectrum of vibrations, yet we can also bring ourselves back into that 0 point. And so when we do that, we can remember who we are. We can become the experiencer, but also the observer of the one experiencing. Conduits for these vibrations that can move through us. That's what we are. Not identifying ourselves with the emotions or the vibrations that we may be hosting within us as an octave of consciousness at that point in our time and at that point within space-time, where we can begin to, I'm hearing assimilate, all right, ourselves into an archetype or expression that looks like the vibrational realm that this frequency resides in. So for example, you can look like the archetype, you can begin to look like the expression of that octave of consciousness collapsing into form. For example, I'm experiencing anger right now, but I am not anger itself. We become the wearer of these vibrations. It reminds me of, I think it's a Rumi quote where he says, we are not the garment, we are the wearer, right? We are the one that is wearing them. And so you remember yourself as the light within that is simply experiencing these different sensations. And so when we remember that we are experiencing anger, then physiologically, of course, this has many different layers to it, not just bioelectrically, but psychologically as well. We go through all of these different kind of layers of spirit navigating the physical form. And one of those things could be our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system goes into sympathetic state. And so our heart begins to pump. And as it pumps faster, our blood moves away from the heart space and moves into our outer extremities so that we can begin to fight the moment, right? It's a fight or flight response. Our amygdala becomes very active. And so that anger is simply fear in disguise. And so we go through all of these different sensations, right? Where spirit is navigating the physical form. And so the moment that we begin to separate ourselves from that thing that we're wearing, from that very octave that's moving through us, that very frequency that's moving through us, we do not attach to it, and we do not become defined by what it is that we're experiencing within that moment in time. Another example I had of this is, I am love and I am the embodiment of love. When you begin to embody the frequency of love, you are unconditional in your essence. That love becomes a state of awareness. That love is to love without possession. It's to love without attachment. It's to love through your very observation of your own infinite nature and other fractals of infinite potential that move through this very universe and this very system, in which we've all designed to participate, to exchange and interact with. Okay, so there is that beauty in that detached observation, that neutral observation. And then I wrote an analogy for it, which is, it's like someone saying, hi, I like that top, where did you get it? And then you tell them the brand and they're like, hey, you like the top, here, try it on, see how it fits, see if it suits you. And these are like emotions. And the Matrix does this. The Matrix is a psychological operation. And these larger systems, these egregore networks, essentially say, here, try on this top. Try on this top, you beautiful sovereign soul. The top contains the essence of separation and judgment and maybe anger. And so you try on the top and you're like, I don't really like how this sensation makes me feel. You know, I'm in the lower bandwidth of emotional spectrum, okay, of the human spectrum of emotion. I'm experiencing the slow oscillations. It's making me feel dense. It's kind of weighing down my vessel. It's, you know, just making me feel a little bit disconnected from my own power, right? And so you can choose to actually remove that top off at any point in time, right? You are not defined by that emotional expression, that octave expression. You can tune into all octave expressions simultaneously. And what I wrote was that you can then start to have preferences, and it's okay to have preferences, and it's actually important too, where you can say, oh no, thank you, I don't really enjoy that top. Instead, you know, I prefer a sweetheart neckline, or I prefer a square neckline, or a V neckline, or maybe a turtleneck or a low cut. You know, these are more of my kind of preferences. And so as you do that, you honor the connection that you have to yourself of, not every, for example, opinion in this system is actually worthy of your emotional reaction or your emotional response. So a lot of this is how you're actually exchanging your emotional internal world, right? The more hidden, non-physical aspects of yourself as you engage with this system, right? Does the external govern your internal state and govern your internal connection? Or are you able to return back to peace and the perspective of peace, which is your free will of perception, as you look back at every single one of your life experiences? Can you see it from the harmonious, healed lens instead of the lens of the wounded self, the one that still has these strong emotional imprints or reactions or responses from situations that have happened across your space-time journey? Because when we tune into the eternal aspect of self, this is the part of us that's untouched by time and also untouched by the events that transpire in the world around us. All right, now I want to share with you the astral message that we also had. So in the astral realm, what I was seeing was this. All right, so I was looking at a being walking through a room, and I said, what would it look like to put the thoughts in your head on loudspeaker for everyone to hear? This is the level of lucidity and awareness and gentle, non-judgmental observation that we should have when it comes to our own mind. Humanity is actually still going through this maturation process, and the thing is, I'm not going to get too much into it right now, but we observe in this system many beings that have still not mastered their internal realms and desire to ascend, or let's just say escape the third dimension and go into this otherworldly new earth without first mastering this ability. And in many ways, we can be very thankful for the third dimension, because there is a lag time between when we think something to if we choose to act upon the things that we're thinking about. Okay? There is a level of responsibility that higher dimensional civilizations actually have, because when you think of something, it instantaneously manifests. And so collectively, and the collective timelines in which we're all contributing towards, thank God that we have this beautiful dimension and this lag time. This is what I was saying, right? So I spoke about this becoming a time to actually become your own support system. And the moment that you watch your own mind, that you begin to observe your own mind, and you're really able to gently, let's just say, redirect your perspective on what begins to flow through you with that non-attachment, you become magnetic in the system. I saw somebody becoming magnetic. It's almost like I'm seeing Jupiter residing within the mind of the individual. And if you think about Jupiterian energy, it's very expansive, it's very optimistic, but he's also this wise sage that can see life through this heightened perspective, through a more broader universal truth, where he doesn't attach to his own thoughts. He is a conduit for different thoughts and emotions to streamline through him, yet he also has this expanded awareness in becoming the observer of the one experiencing, right? So I spoke about the room filling with whatever you're thinking about, and I was seeing this as free will of perception. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're walking out on the high street, and unless you have internal self-judgment, right, if there's no enemy within, then there will not be an enemy without. If you're walking down the high street and you're being stared at, or you walk into a room and you're being looked at, you could be thinking in your head, oh my gosh, like, why am I being stared at? Da 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 da, they're probably judging me. And that could be how you experience the world. That's your free will of perception. Versus, you may actually be stared at because someone likes you, right? Or you may be stared at because someone likes your outfit that you have on, or they like your hair, or they like whatever this is, or they could be admiring you and what it is that you're doing, okay? They could be admiring the aura of how you move through the system, but it's about how you hold your energy. And so you can have that free will of perception. Again, you don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. Now, that's the scene one that I see, okay? So it's being really mindful of what's happening in your inner world. The next scene I saw was the linear progression of this woman going on a really long journey. 4.5 hours could be significant for you, but she was getting to where it is that she was going. And on the way, she ended up transforming into this green type of archetype by the time she reached her destination. And I saw that as the heart space, where you could be on a really long journey back to this deep, irreplaceable type of self-love, where the connection that you have with yourself is the number one connection that you should have. I'm seeing the connection that you have to yourself will govern the way that you connect and exchange your life force with the world around you. But the heart space is essentially your interconnectedness to all things, being so deeply, let's just say, linked with your own divinity, where you don't see yourself as separate from your own divinity, where you are a divine being expressing and navigating this physical realm, that this bond, this inseparable integration process, I'm hearing, not only becomes restorative, but it's a part of who you are. You are inseparable from your own divinity. And that could be the long journey of your own life experience, the long journey back to coherence, and what your life looks like as you navigate this construct with this level of awareness. Now, one of the other scenes I saw was this double agent, and he was kind of undercover, and they had to open a valve and depressurize it. And this being fell into nihilism, where he no longer felt aligned with this timeline, and so he was looking for an out. We'll go ahead and do a little segment for a reading on this, but I'm seeing it as something that you're able to, let's just say, something that could have felt overwhelming that you're then able to restore. It reminds me of having a restorative, regenerative fountain of youth within you, and this could be your childlike essence, and giving yourself permission to play once again. Play within your own life experience, and I'm hearing that play is inseparable from your own creative abilities. It's through your own creativity and things that you want to procreate, and how your decisions are decisions of creation. Every choice you make is an act of creation and becoming empowered, no matter how small each one of those decisions are on a daily basis. Okay. Now, the next scene is the last scene, and this is probably one of the most important. So, I met with a shaman in the astral realm, and what I saw was seeing how much you had changed, and being able to hold space for deities that still may be lost in sleeping in matter, and seeing life through this distorted and inverted truth. There are many of us in the system that are still moving through these inversions of truth, and I do want to just hold space for the fact that everything is always in perfect design. So many of us desire for everyone to wake up and everyone da 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 da. But there is always harmonic order being sustained within. While some beings fall into decoherence, we allow others to come into that coherence, right? The matrix is designed as this spherical cycle where we always fall in and out of consciousness itself. Okay, we're always moving through these different levels of awareness, these different kind of brainwave states as we navigate the system. And so I saw somebody opening this doorway of life, and it was the sacral energy that was being unblocked, where many can be, let's just say, easily manipulated by stimulus in the system. So it could be emotional stimulus in the system. And not every opinion, not every message that we see ripple through this matrix, let's say, in the collective grids, deserves your emotional reaction. And that emotion could be casting judgment. That I'm seeing casting judgment on the very systems that you claim to be against. Some of us are still learning this, and we do observe this quite a lot in, I guess, the spiritual identity or archetype that many of us wear. Fighting the very systems that we claim to be against. And when we cast judgment on that, it's such a dense frequency that we actually feed into the system, where we become like the very beings we push away. It kind of reminds me of hurt people hurt people. The biggest flex, if you want to call it like this, is to not become hardened by your circumstances, to not allow what it is that you've experienced through space-time to disconnect you from your heart, to harden your heart, to not become like those who have hurt you that were also experiencing profound levels of suffering. All cruelty springs from weakness, right? And then I also saw, what we realize is that not every opinion deserves an emotional reaction, even our own internal judgments or thoughts. And when we learn to rise above and master that through acceptance, it allows us to maintain harmony when we navigate it externally too. This is part of the social engineering within the system, and that's something that's been weaved through, societal engineering. It's something generationally in which we all continue to experience these patterns of behavior. They're essentially designed to actually pull us away from our own connection to our true nature, which is the innate expression of love itself, which is unconditional acceptance. It is a level of awareness of, okay, well, this third dimension in which we've all created is a container to host infinite expressions, infinite frequencies, and each one of these vibrations are able to interact with each other in this system. But how coherent can we remain as we're navigating and moving through this realm where multiple frequencies occupy? This is true mastery of the third dimension. And this is also something that we see within our own world, right? How can we be so deeply connected and anchored and rooted in this eternal truth to the point where nothing externally deviates us from our own true human potential, right? From our own infinite potential and expression. Because within every single one of us, we have great destructive potential. And that can be how the human navigates this planet Earth, where we are creating suffering, we are causing suffering, we are inflicting suffering, or we are able to move through the system extremely integrated and poised and become that divine lighthouse of that embodied expression and archetype and live by that very example. And so that is going to be the main distinction, where there are new realms of information which allow us to understand our own multidimensional functions and abilities. And I just see that being something that humanity is still maturing into. There is a maturation process to remember ourselves as more non-physical than we are physical. Again, our DNA is literally 2% physical. It has 2% of the proteins that are physical. And so there is 2% of our DNA that is interacting with this third dimensional plane, while the rest of us is creating simultaneously in etheric planes. So let's go ahead and get a message for this. I want to take a look at the sacral chakra energy and then also the throat space too, since this was and thank you. One thing I wrote and actually came through as a download this morning was all about integrity. And integrity is the ability to become our own witness as we move through the system, not needing external validation or acceptance from those around us, but instead to just recognize the light that exists within you and also exists within other beings. And all it is that there are certain belief systems that have obstructed the way that a fractal of infinite potential sees itself, but it doesn't negate the fact of what it is and what it's always been. And as you embody that living example, you also reflect a being's potential back to them. And that can be something that's deeply confronting, it can be intimidating, it can be inspiring. And again, this multidimensional realm allows that energy to disperse and be experienced exactly in the way that's in benefit for that soul at that stage of their evolution. And the fact that I'm bringing this up, it could be of significance because it's almost a message around, how have you kind of blocked off vast portions of your potential, worrying about how you were going to be perceived. So that integrity is doing what feels true, right? And what feels true to you is something that you must honor, even if no one else knows the difference. That success is not measured by, what it is that we attain in this realm. That success is often measured by the way that you impact people in the things that are silent and the things that go unseen. It's the things that you won't compromise in order to obtain or reach that success. And I think each one of our definitions of success can be wildly different. But ultimately, it is walking with integrity. I don't know, well, I think I know about you and everyone here. But integrity is something that anchors you into yourself. It really is. Like, if I don't have integrity or the work I do it's not infused with that essence, I don't want to do it. There's such a strong aversion on a soul level to not compromise or reduce yourself in any way. So we have X-rays. X-rays is beyond ordinary perception. Doctors trust what the X-ray shows them, even though they cannot see it with their human eyes. So it talks about something going on a deeper level right now. And then you have telescope. Telescope is literally seeing farther than the human eyes can see. Telescope is allowing you to see farther, I'm hearing, than the human condition, because what can humans see? Well, your avatar can only see 1% of the light spectrum, if even that, but the rest is existing in higher bandwidths of frequency light. And so there could be something around the third eye, and it's funny because the third eye is literally seated right here. So there could be something around open portals right now between the sacral, the throat, and the third eye, which is, I'm seeing creation as above, so below. So there's something from as above that is being expressed into the dimensions below to create physically, right? There's something around this. Wait, solar flares, something again that has been withheld. What am I telling you? Expansion, that Jupiterian energy, something that has been previously withheld that's now flowing from you, and it's something emotional, all right? There could be something that your emotional body is communicating to you right now. Now, emotions and intuition are different. I don't want to say that. When our emotional body is, you know that quote of muddy waters will clear themselves? The emotions can become muddy waters. And that's why it's really important to understand what vibration are we wearing right now, right? Are we neutral in our observation, or are we viewing something from a refraction mechanism? Are we viewing something from the way that light bends through a prism? Some emotions can really distort the way that we're seeing a, let's just say, situation in our life, or the potential that situation can have in our life, where we can project our own, let's say, desires, our subconscious desires, onto a situation that is not the ultimate truth, right? So many beings can live under these. I'm seeing there's something around the Arabian Night song coming through. Arabian Night. There's something around that sand and the cave of wonders specifically, where when we do things with attachment or the desire to possess something, where the cave collapses on those who come into it without the desire to just simply experience, who desire to, possess something. There's something around to experience. This realm is for pure experience. All that will matter by the end of this is how you have lived, and how you have touched and impacted the world and those around you, and the ways in which you got to finally move through the world deeper connected to yourself and your own roots. That's all that will matter in the end. And so, tipping point before a loss of stability is flares that are characterized by emotions with a lots of sudden energy. They release unexpected large amounts of energy that were previously withheld. And so this is telling me that a lot of emotions that have been suppressed and repressed are finally being expressed and lived. And there's beautiful things that you can create within the realm of vibration itself. I'm seeing that, but don't allow yourself to get swept up into it to the point where you lose your own footing. All right. This is an event that's a double-edged sword and also a direct turning point. As we know, the sun's energy, when moved in large quantities and acted upon, can be an ideal combination to start projects, make decisions with direct actions, and find yourself standing in an entirely active point. So again, if the not to consider when to stop is not taken into account, they can be explosive. It can also be an energy that implodes. So it talks about excess energy that leads us directly to the loss of emotional stability. It could be linked from a lot of deep anger and also imbalance. And really deep shame that we can take on, especially when we speak about the sacred inner space and insecurity, can be the culmination of deep anger that we have. And it's not to these larger systems at hand, it's not to those around us, but it's anger and towards ourselves. You know, it can be resentment that we harbor towards ourselves, because in the end we recognize that nothing and nobody was ever in our way. It's not even you versus you. It's all you. It always has been, right? So that's something that we see, right? It's the integration of the masculine and feminine. At this point, it would just be kind of getting in your own way, right? With whatever it is that wants to come through, which is quite funny. In the end, we do see that, you know. All right, we have 2 star child messages. Emergence, so again, something is wanting to emerge from you for sure. And then we also have portals. So again, you are a portal of creation. This even looks like the sacral chakra energy when we look at that sunset there too. Absolutely beautiful. You have star children there at the base. I have to go in a few minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and read you this message. There also could be something around, you know, the act of alchemy, right? Alchemy is saying, okay, I may be choosing this, I may be wearing this emotion at this point in time, but what do I want to choose to do with it? What do I want to choose to do with this realm of vibration that I'm experiencing right now? Some of my biggest turning points in life have been from, you know, now I say, please give me a reason to get angry. I don't get angry very often, but when I do experience that sensation or that emotion, it ends up being a major catalyst for me. Yet, who you've had to be in order to get something up off the ground or get started or initiate a change in your life, you know, sometimes that initiator or catalyst can even be deep pain. You know, sometimes a situation doesn't hurt enough for us to initiate that change. And who we've had to be in order to create that thing or get that momentum going is no longer who we have to be moving forward. And so the deeper question would become, who have you had to be, and what version has been created, what personality has perhaps been created as a survival mechanism when navigating this construct that was designed to keep you safe, but also no longer serves a purpose moving forward. So what are we integrating? What are we healing? What are we alchemizing? What are we releasing and allowing to dissolve so that it can re-emerge into a high expression? And that could be the portal in which you are. So portal talks about doorways into the now, letting go of the warrior. So again, that could be, again, where you have felt the need to kind of fight through life. Collapsing the old paradigm, blissful dimensions, blessings of truth and your truth. My ability to be love with what is opens doors to the subtle realms. Sometimes we notice something is missing and our hearts cannot find what they've been quietly looking for without us even noticing. Eventually our hearts get through to us and we follow the call to go with them. Listening carefully, we can silently ask, what is it that we long for? What yearnings have been trying to reveal themselves in quiet moments? What actually is it that we miss? And can we even define it? If we let ourselves feel these pangs, those ones we've been trying to ignore, if we give them space to let them take on some form and welcome the pictures of what feels lost, we are suddenly a lot farther towards getting there. The portals card reminds you to go with them. Within you is a doorway back to your own true home, your source, and your family of light. You walk through the portals and vortices of light that lead into other dimensions, into expanded dimensions to receive great healings. The portals of the old paradigm can collapse in this process because they cannot be sustained in a higher vibration. That's exactly what it is. If you want to exist and, essentially what this is, when you elevate your own vibration, what happens is you begin to exchange energy in this realm, which the true nature of this realm is the realm of vibration. in a higher quality. So you'll see higher qualities of exchanges. When you ascend into a higher octave, you actually notice that people in your life experience also ascend into a higher octave. And sometimes they don't change and they don't have to, but the way in which you perceive them shifts. So when you close your eyes, you can look into the space of your heart and feel what your inner self is trying to tell you, and allow yourself to feel it, for there will be a remedy that emerges. The emergence is to celebrate sensuality and pleasure, so very much sacral themes. It also speaks about the right to feel and enjoy, and finding your joy, truly living sacral chakra. So yes, huge sacral chakra energy. Resolving any guilt issues, so that could be the guilt around creation. I'm hearing the guilt around just allowing yourself to be happy and blissful and harmonious, even if those around you may not be feeling that way. Playing sunshine, I'm hearing, instead of mirroring your environment, mirror a different example to the very environment that you're immersed in. And also the end of a major clearing. By just being and experiencing life beyond the mind, I return to bliss. Leaving behind mind limitations, emergence heralds receptiveness and expression of sensuality. The senses emerge as an infinite organ of bliss through the subtle enjoyment released of the need for any emotional fix. Can you feel the many frequencies of light that you're receiving in every part of your body? The emergence of joy guides you into these feelings of light, shows that it's safe to merge with these loving vibrations. These are reminders of the blissful dimensions in Numeria. So again, can you allow deep peace to emerge within you, especially as you relate to each one of your life experiences, and embrace the emotion without going into mental projection about it. The emergence of bliss shows you how all density melts away through love. By feeling the light, that also brings light to denser feelings and emotions and information, so your whole body is able to be received. Again, your emotions are always speaking to you. Sometimes that guilt that we feel, or that shame that we feel, insecurity, directly links to not where we've been abandoned in life, but actually where we've been abandoning ourselves and our own gifts and our own divinity and our own form of expression. And sometimes that's what the resentment is as well. It's where we've been disconnected from our own power. The very thing in which we often feel we, like, what would be the word? Are seeking for the external realm to complete for us, can only be found within. Often when you're searching for the approval or validation from those around you, you're really just seeking for safety within your own being. You're really just seeking the essence of being able to feel safe within your own inner realms, so that your soul can feel free to play and experience and experiment in this realm once again. So I'm gonna love and leave you right there. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, do consider subscribing, because we love to have you around. Personal reading details are also down below. Also check out Autistic if you're looking for some high quality AAE grade gemstones. You have 2 discount codes for that down below, and one of the proceeds are donated towards Otter Sanctuaries. They also have out new obelisks, so if you want to get the beautiful obelisk, I'll have some soon to show for you for the channel. They're like crystal, how would you, it's an obelisk, right? So it's its own receiver, let's say that. It's its own receiver that's able to work in conjunction with many prisms and other sites that can hold and, what would be the word, contain, become a container for these vortices. All right, so anyway, I'm gonna speak to you very, very soon. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, do consider subscribing. I'm now going in circles. Let me know what you feel has been suppressed or repressed that you're recovering from the lineage and you're finally expressing in this lifetime in a way that you weren't able to before. Until next time, bye. Clouds in the sky.